Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Inside. It's that time of the year again in Delhi, and it won't be too long before the city gets covered in smog each morning. And we're talking at a time where the people of Delhi have been subjected to some serious and severe pollution levels, which has made the air around them extremely hazardous to breathe. It is also very discomforting to know that the air that you breathe within confined spaces here in this city is perhaps as hazardous, if not more, than the air that you breathe outside. However, the place that I'm standing in right now is unique in that respect. I'm at the Paharpur Business Center here in the heart of Delhi near Nehru Place, and this has been recognized as one of the healthiest working spaces in the NCR region. Today I'll be interviewing Mr. Kamal Miatal, the CEO of Paharpur Business Center. Thank you for joining us, sir. And Mr. Barun Agarwal, the CEO of Breathe Easy. Thank you, Barun.
Thank you.
Who will be speaking to us today about the ways in which they have been at the forefront of advocating simple, novel, yet very effective solutions to how the people in Delhi can actually improve the quality of air they breathe around them. So let me begin with you, Mr. Miatal. You've written this book, both of you have co-authored this book, How to Grow Fresh Air. And this is a very critical step in the direction that we would want the people of Delhi to take, because this is a clarion call for them to be a part of becoming more environmentally conscious and also being aware of the gas chamber, literally, that they are living in right now and what they can do to improve their lives. You begin this book recalling a very poignant experience that you went through more than 3 decades ago, living in this city where you suddenly woke up with breathlessness, and there came a time where the doctors actually advised you to leave the city, but you chose not to. You were determined to stay back and make a difference. If you could just tell us what prompted you, first and foremost, to put pen to paper and educate the citizens of Delhi and the people of India of the conditions that they live in and what they can do to improve the quality of life.
Well, this book is all about my own personal experience in having breathed terrible air and what I did about it. It is not about preaching so much as relating one's experience with what one has been able to achieve with using plants and also technology. So many years ago, I was allergic to Delhi's air, and as the book would say, that I felt that there was an opportunity for me to fix it. And as luck would have it, in research, one is sometimes lucky and sometimes one is unlucky. And in this particular case, we were lucky. We found 3 common, simple plants by which you can grow all the fresh air you need to survive. This was enough to clean the air at that particular point in time. As the time progressed, we found by year 2010, the air quality in Delhi had deteriorated beyond the capabilities of plants. So then what we started doing was thinking about a different solution to be able to tackle the problems of 2010 and possibly in the future. That means 2010 to perhaps 2020.
Barun, Delhi's acquired this notorious reputation over the years of being a gas chamber. What Mr. Miatal went through was more than 3 decades ago, and it's true to say that the situation's worsened significantly since then. If you could just give the lay viewer, who's perhaps not a resident of Delhi necessarily, an idea of what it is like to just be taking a walk outdoors and how hazardous that is actually to the physical as well as in some ways the mental health of the person concerned.
Well, thank you again, Siddharth, for having us on the show. I'd like to break this up into 2 parts, right? You talked about this. First of all, I call the conditions that we are in a public national health emergency. This is not just a fad or some little amount of smoke that comes during the stubble burning period. Throughout the year, we have a situation where the particulate matter levels in Delhi are above the standards. Now, standards are something which are not a target, but they are the limit. That is the upper limit above which it is a health emergency or a big problem. Most other countries of the world declare it as an emergency. They shut down public facilities, they shut down schools when the ambient levels go above their threshold limit of typically 50 micrograms per cubic meter. In India, the threshold is 60 micrograms per cubic meter, and we are above that limit throughout the year, but we have not yet closed down our schools because of air pollution, even though the levels now are in the hazardous or extremely poor scale. Now, what is it like when we go outside to walk? Again, I'll break that up into two parts. One is the short-term effects and one is the long-term effects. When you have short-term, very high episodic exposure like we have in the last couple of days, where visibility has also become very poor, and you're breathing in particulate matter that is levels of 300, 400, 500 micrograms per cubic meter, it's equivalent to smoking multiple cigarettes. Now, a smoker has the choice, but what about a small child? What about non-smokers who don't have that choice? When we go out for a walk, we are actually breathing in smoke. The human body actually gets used to the smell of smoke, just like we get used to the noise of an aircraft when we are sitting in an aircraft, and we don't feel that noise after a little while. Similarly, we get used to the smoke. But if you wear a good quality mask with a carbon filter and a HEPA filter, after 5 minutes of wearing the mask, you remove that mask and you take one breath outdoors in green, fresh Lutyens Delhi, as we like to think about it, you will smell the smoke and the horridness that is there in the air. Now, the short-term impact is that a lot of people can have very severe attacks in terms of respiratory issues, but the long-term impact of that is even more scary and dangerous. There was an article this morning in the newspapers that talked about over 1 million deaths of children because of exposure to particulate matter. And this particulate matter goes into our lungs, goes into our bloodstream, and impacts pretty much every single organ of the human body. It impacts our lungs, it impacts our kidneys, it impacts the brain, we can get stroke, ischemic heart failure. So much more than the lungs, it can impact pretty much every single human organ.
And especially lethal is the PM 2.5 that you mentioned quite extensively in the book, and its consequences, because it's very thin particulate matter that can easily make its way inside the body system.
I think it will be interesting for everybody to know that the PM1 particles in Delhi are about 80 to 100% of the PM, 80 to 90% of the PM 2.5s. Okay. And these are finer particles of 1 micron thickness. So which go directly into your, not only in your lungs, but they go directly into your bloodstream and get lodged in the arteries, and sooner or later one would need stents.
You devote a very significant amount of attention in the book to the hazards of the air that you actually breathe within the confines of closed spaces. It could be buildings, it could be your bedroom, it could be the kitchen. I remember talking to you just shortly before this, and you said that potentially the air that we actually take in inside within a confined space could be more hazardous than perhaps what you're exposed to outside.
You have outside air and it's all its pollutants, plus you have the additional pollutants which you as a human being have added on in your own home. It could be paints, it could be varnishes, it could be carpets, it could be curtains, it could be the plastic, it could be the dhoop batti, the agarbatti, it could be the lamp which you light, and that is converting itself the oxygen into CO2, and it's your own breath, your own CO2, your own skin, and so on and so forth. So you're adding on, whether it is cooking, you're adding on masala aromas, you're adding perfumes, you're adding deodorants. So you're adding all kinds of things which smell as an additional thing in your own home. So the pollutants inside a home are much more than outside as such.
Air purification is one of the prescribed solutions in this book. Could you please take us through the process of how it actually works? And there's also the affordability aspect of it in terms of what common citizens of Delhi or Bombay or any other major metro in India can do to actually purify the air around them as much as they can.
So in terms of air purification, you know, one of the big challenges that I faced for 4 years, even after starting this business, was I was able to reduce the particulate matter in my bedroom, but I was not able to do anything with the carbon dioxide levels in the room. So when you sleep, you're breathing out carbon dioxide and you're breathing in oxygen. And in a closed room with a typical air conditioner, the air in that air conditioner is only being recycled, and the CO2 levels start to escalate very, very high. Now, what we were able to figure out was that sleeping in low CO2 levels, like in the olden days, you would sleep on the chat of a house on a charpai, that people no longer can do in a city like Delhi or any other country of city of India, because the air is so polluted outside. But when you sleep inside, you've got another problem. Even if you have a simple air purifier that removes particulate matter, the carbon dioxide starts to elevate. So we were for the first time able to figure it out and develop a product and a solution which not only fixed the particulate matter in the room, but also brought the CO2 levels down. So the Now there are three phases of filtration, right? The simple one is a recirculation air purifier, which has a good HEPA filter, a good carbon filter, and a good pre-filter for the coarse dust that is there in the air of Delhi. And a good filter will take care of your particulate matter to a large extent. However, when you have to dilute your carbon dioxide and volatile organic compounds, then you need to introduce a certain element of outdoor air to that room on a continuous basis. And you have to filter that air out, and so that's the second level of filtration. And those are the two ways you can actually clean out the room. In terms of affordability, this is a big challenge, right? When I talk about affordability, yes, it started off being an elitist problem, or I shouldn't say that. It is actually a problem of everybody. It started off becoming a solution for the elite. But slowly we are realizing that that solution is being adopted by other people down the pyramid as well. Started with the expats of India. Then it moved to the HNIs of India. Now it's moving to the upper middle class, and the middle class are starting to say that, oh, if everybody is going to get impacted, what about us, and what can we do? Unfortunately, the poor man on the street is someone who is not going to be able to afford solutions for their home today. And for that, we really need to push our government. And the last part of the book talks about how we can fix the problem as a community, as a government, and what the government can do to fix the outdoor air pollution. And that's something that needs to happen on a war footing. It's a national health emergency. It's not just it's not just a little problem that we have.
Purely in layman terms, if you were to prescribe an air purifier for a confined space for the benefit of a 2 BHK flat, for instance, then how much would that amount to? Typically,
depending on the product that you choose, for a 2 BHK flat, the cost would run anywhere from 30,000 rupees all the way up to even 3-4 lakhs of rupees for one 2 BHK apartment. So it depends. You know, you've got some of the best solutions in the world which will cost more, and you got some of the simpler solutions which will give you some of the results but not all of it. So you get what you pay for. And some of the very cheap solutions that are available on the market, based on our experience and based on our checking, we found that there are lots of products that are not so good or not so effective, and hence we've done a lot of research, a lot of testing, and we, based on our experience, we only then promote the products that we have found to be extremely worthy of the money that one would spend.
Mr. Meatle, you established this center close to 3 decades ago, the early 90s. How did you end up transforming this into the space that it has become now? And how have you achieved the objective of making this one of the healthiest working spaces here in the NCR region?
We've been measuring the pollutants. Now, whether it is PM 2.5s, PM 1s, whether it is CO2, whether it is NOx, SOx, or recently we found that the chlorine levels in Delhi's air were very, very high. I might mention something about chlorine. Chlorine, in terms of chlorine, we are nearly 70-80% of the WHO limit in the air, which is very unusual. And when you have such high chlorine levels, and especially in the winter time, like now, when you have a hot water bath, the chlorine from the water also gets transferred into the air, and perhaps in your bathroom, the chlorine levels would exceed the WHO limits. And chlorine absolutely does so much damage to your lungs that perhaps even the PM 2.5s may not do. So it's important to make sure that for us it has been to figure out what is the issue. And over a period of years, we found that formaldehyde, for example, in offices is a major issue. So we've got plants to be able to remove the formaldehyde. Similarly, the idea was to have good CO2 levels, very low CO2 levels, as a good indicator of the pollution levels in the building. And hence we have plants, for example here. Here it's a variety of areca palm, which is a bamboo palm grown in hydroponics. And this particular planter converts the CO2 into oxygen very effectively, has no bacteria and fungus as such, and the roots eat up the bacteria and fungus. So the bacteria fungus levels in the building are extremely low thanks to this particular type of plant and the planter. Then we can move on to, for example, the money plants. These money plants convert, they remove the formaldehydes, trichloroethylene, benzene from the air, and this becomes important because in an office environment and also in a home, the formaldehyde levels are very, very high. And we have a large number of this because of the formaldehyde levels being high. These are the mother-in-law's tongue or Sansevieria, and this is the plant which converts the CO2 into oxygen at night when it's dark. And you need about 6 or 7 or 8 of these plants per person in your bedroom.
So one of the aspects of pollution, especially indoor pollution, is also the fact, it's not just the physical implications of what may happen, it's also the fact that vast levels of CO2 can actually have an effect on your cognitive abilities.
Harvard University as well as Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in the US published a study in 2016 showing that people who were in clean surroundings but with CO2 of less than 600 ppm, their cognitive abilities went up by as much as 299%. This means that if you have clean air and also the CO2 levels are low, that means it's fully ventilated, you'll achieve your full potential. It does not mean that your IQ will increase, but you will achieve your full potential of whatever you are. And who does not want to achieve his own full potential? Whether you're working, you want to achieve your full potential, and if you're going to college or doing say an exam next morning, you certainly want to make sure that your brain power is functioning at its maximum. So it is something which is important for everybody who is competing with someone else, that it is not something you can say you forget about it, because you're already curtailing your ability to be able to put 2 plus 2 together, which is cognitive ability.
In your book, you do mention in a very tongue-in-cheek way that you do not want to be referred to as an anti-pollution Nazi, especially when you make certain prescriptions about some of the things that people can do within the confines of their house to reduce dependability on certain products, for instance.
Go back to our own heritage, which means instead of shaking hands, you do namaste. Instead of wearing shoes and taking them all over the place in your house, you take off your shoes, which we used to do. The Japanese still do it. We're talking about agarbatti, dhupbatti. Open the window and have as much as you want. Don't protect your bedroom, where you really spend 1/3, 1/4 of your life. Figure that room as a sacred room for your well-being, for both making you smarter and also for your health. So at least 6 to 8 hours a day, you're going through respite, you're letting your systems relax. So do whatever you can within the framework of your economic situation. Make sure that that particular room, that little space which you have at night, is the cleanest possible which you can afford to have.
That you'd like to add, Buddy?
Yeah, so a book has a lot of strategies and simple ideas that people can do without really spending too much money. A couple of others that I'll add to are, very simple ideas. For example, if you're using nail polish remover, a lot of women do that in Indian households or anywhere in the world. Do that in a toilet or in the bathroom and make sure that the exhaust fan is on, so that the fumes of that nail polish remover are not lingering in the bedroom for hours afterward after you've applied it. Same thing in the kitchen. Whenever you're cooking, always keep your exhaust fan on, because then the fumes of the cooking will end up going out versus lingering on in the kitchen and perhaps even going into other living spaces of the house. So a lot of common sense ideas. I mean, this is not rocket science, right? I mean, what we've talked about in the first half of the book, which is simple stuff. Keep carpets, keep as little carpets as possible and pay a lot of attention to your carpets. Your bed, where you're sleeping for that many hours. A really good quality vacuum cleaner that can remove dust mites from the bed is something that's very simply can be done on a regular basis, and that can have a huge impact on what you're breathing throughout that night when you're sleeping. Now, does it mean that these simple strategies are enough to get you covered from protecting you from the kind of levels of pollution we have in Delhi? Perhaps not. We are in, if I would say if you're in the US where we get readings of 3, 4, 5 micrograms per cubic meter outdoors, absolutely, that is more than enough. We don't need to do anything more. However, when our readings are 300, 400 micrograms, even if we have perfectly well sealed windows and doors, there is a certain amount that is going to leak in through any crack, through any opening of the window, through any opening of the door. And for that, then you need to have some level of air purification, some level of plants, something to bring down that carbon dioxide at night to actually get you to the perfect level of air quality, to your absolute optimal level of being your best possible.
Many thanks for speaking to us, Barun as well as Mr. Miatal, and hopefully the people of Delhi and across India take on board some of the solutions that you prescribe to literally grow fresh air around them. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.